the lengths that the left have gone to just denigrate just the term Hotep. So when I speak to somebody, I go, yo, I'm Hotep Jesus. They go, oh, you a Hotep? They already have preconceived notions about what that is. And I'm nothing like what they saw. I'm just a common sense individual. So the fight hasn't even gotten to what are your politics. It's just a stain on the name alone because of the $1 billion campaign to destroy us.
Hello, Culminators. This is Ron Coleman, and I'm excited to have you on board today. We're going to be talking to Hotep Jesus, Bryan Sharpe, one of the most interesting and just fun and pleasant people. I hope that doesn't hurt the branding in any way. I know for me, if people describe me as pleasant, they're not going to want to hire me. But this is you. I just love talking to this guy. And the thing about Bryan and I is that I was on his show once. We could I think we could have spoken for 3 or 4 hours. Just also we kind of grew up in part of the same part in New Jersey, so we have a lot in common. People often mistake us for each other. In fact, people say you never see Bryan and Ron in the same place. How you doing, Hotep Jesus?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. Great to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We've been going back and forth, couldn't get it right,
Yeah,
but here we are on the 22nd. So the stars are aligning on the summer solstice, and here we are.
here it is. The pretty much the longest day of the year, and we're not going to take all day. We don't do that to culminators, but since you've stepped on the third rail and mentioned the date in a pre-recorded segment, so that means we're going to have to rush this one right out this week. But that's good because we're going to talk about current events in a world which is changing so rapidly, not just changing minute to minute, but changing from the way we thought the world would look even months ago, much less years ago. Before I do that, I'm going to ask Bryan, who has a fantastic podcast called Hotep Jesus. He's a great internet figure, a really unique thinker, to explain what Hotep means. A lot of you guys, I assume that this podcast skews a little bit closer to my age and my demographic than to Bryan's. So if you've seen the term before, you might not have understood what it's about. What what's a Hotep, and how did you become Hotep Jesus?
Yeah, so really what we embark on is preservation of culture. So 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we had a huge amount of what you would call black consciousness. And I don't really like to call it black consciousness. I like to call it uncovering true knowledge, understanding the universe, understanding the human body, understanding history, understanding who we are and how the world got to where it is. When I look at some of the things that our ancestors have uncovered or unearthed, like the work of Sheikh Anta Diop, this really transcends just blackness. This is just raw, hard truths that were uncovered. So,
The work of Sheikh
someone,
Atadia
Sheikh Anta Diop.
Anta Diop.
Yeah, yeah.
Never. Who is he? Is he the guy that they just knocked out in Iran in the
No,
tunnel?
not
No,
not that type of Sheikh. No, his
no, no,
name
yeah, yeah.
is
No.
spelled.
Seriously, this is. I'm just gonna take off my shoes here. You're gonna have to give me a little bit of a primer too. But
Are
tell me about
are you
Sheikh Anta
familiar with
Diop.
Madame Curie?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, he's coming out of that university of thought. He's studied in that realm of Madame
Okay.
Curie. Yeah. So he's a multilingual historian and doctor, true polymath, and he's written several works. One of them is Africa and Civilization, and just phenomenal academic work.
And
You can
and
find
his work has withstood
the test
traditional
of time.
academic scrutiny.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
because you and I
Diop,
talked when I was on your show about the We Was Kang stuff
yeah.
and how, some of that was overreaching and didn't necessarily move people certainly in the non-Africo-American segment,
Yeah.
to the extent that somebody might have cared what white folk think. But there is definitely something out there for Black people to connect with in terms of historical, cultural,
Well, I think
legitimate.
all people, right? So when I say Diop, right, one of the most studied people, and you go, who is that? That means there is a whole entire blind side you have on what information is out there. And that's why I say when people say, oh, the we was Kangs, sometimes say it doesn't hold up to merit. And then you mention a scholar. And I say, Madame Curie, you're like, okay, I know Madame Curie. And I'm like, well, he studied over there. And you're like, okay, then this has to be a respected academic. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there are true academics, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, the list goes on. Ivan Van Sertima, all doctors, right? All PhD, well-studied scholars. So what happens is the Black Lives Matter movement is beginning to fester, and it's starting to derail Black consciousness. So our movement sort of spawns as like a fourth generation or an extension of Black
You're
consciousness, where
using
we're
you're using the present tense now for effect, but this is actually something that began a few years ago.
right.
In other words, you say our movement spawns and Black Lives Matter. I mean, I think Black Lives Matter is as a political force, as a cultural force, as we can agree is finished. Would you not agree?
Yes,
Okay. Back to the.
but its effects are still here,
Oh God, yes. Okay, fair. Yeah.
right? The effects of, because what they were a Trojan horse for the transgender movement. Let's just be honest.
Can you imagine? That's a bombshell statement for the trans. If you would have told me for cultural Marxism, that's something pretty much every guest on this podcast has ever said. But for transgender movement in particular, that's mind-boggling to me. And I don't want to bog you down. Boggling and bogging, by the way, folks, are two different things. I don't want to bog you down in that, but that's a
Yeah,
remarkable insight.
yeah. So gender ideology, that whole thing really skyrocketed through Black Lives Matter. When you go look back at the original website, they had this villages section and it talked about the nuclear family, and they said mothers, parents, children, and they omitted fathers. They literally were like trying to center. And then in there you saw the LGBT stuff, the trans stuff, and this was the first time I ever saw like a movement. I'm like, trans, like there's a movement, and like what does this have to do with Black lives? And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So we had scholars like Dr. Inky and the great Shaka Akmos, and we have all these scholars who aren't they spend so much time in the books, whereas I'm a computer geek. So I was here when AOL started in the chat rooms and in Facebook and MySpace. So I've sort of mastered social media. So what we are is we're a bridge between the past and the future, preserving culture and bringing some of these ideas and concepts. Because many people, when they think of Black people, especially the red whites, they think Don Lemon or Whoopi Goldberg. And I'm like, you do know that outside of your Black conservative talking heads, there's a different type of Black conservative who has a completely different take on politics, life, and culture,
And the
but
answer to
would
your question
still
is no, they don't. They absolutely don't.
correct.
And we don't. I'm here. I have to got to include myself because you mentioned these leading intellectual figures whom I should have familiarized myself with before speaking to you, but that would involve preparation. And we know that is not a feature of this program. But you're saying there's a world, there's a strong Black conservative axis that is not just like you say the Leo Terrells and the guys who are part of the white Black guys, but guys like
Right.
you with a really distinctive this African American in a real literal sense of the word, African and American identity, way of looking at things. And of course, as we discussed, you come out of an academic family, middle class, southern or central New Jersey upbringing. You know what you're talking about. So please continue explaining.
Yeah. So, that's what I saw was me being that bridge and saying, listen, people have to know about this. White, black, whatever you are. If you are American, if you are wherever like this has been such a hidden part of society that it's literally killing people, right? Like we are uncovering things like or I shouldn't even say uncovering because the studies are out there, but like mitochondrial genesis, right? Like we're diving into the human body and we're talking about high blood pressure and lupus and cancer and really teaching people, about how the body works so they can heal themselves. So this is also a huge part of this, like when the whole pandemic came out and people were going out to take the experiment, right? Like my background, because of the Black consciousness community I was raised in, had set the foundation to where I was saying no to the experimentation while everybody else was saying yes and pushing it or saying you're stupid if you don't take it. And I'm like, this is a common sense decision for me. And that's just simply because we understand how the human body works. So,
So
to
part of
finalize.
if I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brian, I don't want anything to get lost. I think, again, based on our past discussions, when you talk about the holistic medicine aspect and the understanding, I don't want to call it rejection, but a high degree of skepticism about accepted institutions like institutional medicine,
Yeah,
which has so failed this country don't get me wrong, amazing thing. Like you said, a lot of the stuff you're describing only happened because of the great work that has been done by great scientists.
correct.
But at the retail level, especially, forget about the fraud in research, the terrible
Right.
fraud that's being uncovered now. But at the patient doctor level, the way they all signed on to the institutional state narrative of how to of the policies and the treatments for COVID, and that was something that absolutely, Black Lives Matter came face to face with that, and it all went out the window. I mean, and that didn't bother hardly anyone in the official who was part of the official narrative.
Right. Yeah.
But again, I'm getting us off track. So
But I want to touch on that point, right? Like we're not against modern medicine. Modern medicine serves a plethora of purposes. And we never want to tell somebody, hey, don't go to your doctor, don't trust your physician. That's not what we're teaching. What we're saying is understand the human body. So when you talk to your doctor, you're talking to him from a place that doesn't have so much ignorance. You get what I'm saying? So when they put something in your body, you know to ask the right questions and you know what's happening in your body, right? So we're not saying no to medicine because medicine serves great purposes. Like at some point, you might need some medicine. The herbs and the plants are not going to save you if it's an emergency. But
this is
modern
also,
medicine has something.
But this is also a Black issue because look at the state of health,
Right.
especially below middle class and lower middle class and beneath that in the Black community. Just driving through any urban area, it's mind-boggling what's happened to Black people in this country. There seems to be a real lack of interest, and yet I know all these both Hotep guys and Hotep adjacent guys, absolutely chiseled. I mean, so into working out and so into into wellness and health consciousness. So are you talking mostly to Black people? Or are you talking to white people who are interested in Black people? Like what's the goal?
I'm talking to anyone that'll listen.
That was too easy.
I'm
That was a
talking
layup.
I'm talking to whoever will listen to me. To be honest with you, So here's my thing on speaking of black people. I had many companies reached out to me and say, "Hey, we want to do black outreach," and I'm like, "There is no such thing as black outreach. You guys have to stop doing this thing and thinking that you've got to change your message for black people.
Well,
Black people,
listen, I've watched a lot of TV commercials, and I think you're making a big mistake because from what I understand from those commercials, 2 out of 3 Americans are black.
yes.
And
So, so
and the other one is mixed race or Asian.
yeah. So so those commercials represent black people. So you don't have to speak black language. You just have to platform black people. Like if you, let's say Ron Coleman says, I want to do black outreach. All right, just hire Hotep Jesus, and just my face, my hair, the way I carry myself is going to attract black people. It's just that simple. So when you look at my platform, right? When we look at the the black left says Hotep Jesus, all your audience is a whole bunch of white people, and that's who you talk to, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fair. I throw an event, 2 events every year, HotepCon and the Grifties. Do you understand that 75% of those people are black men that come to my events? My daily show, Hotep Jesus Live on Kick, is 75% black men. The people that subscribe to my products, my supplements, 75% black men, maybe more like 65% black men, because we do a lot of other marketing initiatives. Black men. It's not because I said I'm going to target black men. It's just simply, I just am myself, and that's who's going to identify with me. Some old white guy is probably not going to enjoy my show, Hotep Jesus Live, mostly because he won't even understand me. I'll be using language and vernacular. He's like, I don't even know what this guy's saying. Click, let me go to somebody I can understand.
Which is why I want to have conversations like this because as you pointed out at the very beginning, there's a world of people who are, I don't want to say influencers, but who are influential and who are thought leaders, who are people who are in the conversation, who don't realize, aren't really aware of the Hotep movement. You guys are not really being platformed by, the I don't know if you want to be, but by the by the main, they call it conservative Inc. I'm not either, by the way. Uh, are you getting
Well,
invited to Turning Point events as a speaker?
that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that we're not being platformed by the black left.
Well, but that I'm sure surprises you even less.
No.
Really, you would think that well, how not?
I thought I would have an easier time connecting with black people on the left than white people on the right. White people on the right perplex me. It's a weird bunch of people who, and when I look at both groups of people, when I look at red whites and blue blacks, all I see
Slow
is
down. You're smart as hell, but not all of us are. I mean, I am, but red whites and blue blacks,
yeah,
liberal white people. No. Conservative white people
right.
and liberal black people. Okay.
Well, to be specific, Republican white people and
okay.
Democratic black people,
Got it.
because
Yeah, those
I
are the
don't
official
view
colors. Right.
the red whites as conservative. Sometimes they come off progressive. I'm like, yo, I'm confused as to what exactly is going on here.
Okay.
Especially this issue with Iran. I'm like, whoa, like, okay.
Well,
Anyway,
James
Lindsay.
Lindsay got roasted for coining, and he's still getting roasted for coining this term woke right, but that's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. The woke right. Yeah. So that's kind of weird to me. Charlie Kirk would fall into the woke right.
Well, Charlie is definitely not an anti-Semite, but on Iran, he's been isolationist. We used to call this was known when I was growing up. this was basically what was called isolationism,
Mm.
which is an amazing concept to think that the I mean, listen, I understand we're all scarred from the mistakes that were made in nation building in Iraq. That doesn't mean you have to do use the same policy, nor would you. For it's a different country. Everything's different. But that hole we're not going to go down together, not today. But in any event, yes, you're saying your red, white, and your blue, black is parties. Back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So I would be absolutely floored if I was welcomed with open arms by the red whites. I'd be like, I would actually start questioning myself, like I must be doing something wrong. Like,
But boy,
'cause
what an
these are,
opportunity they're losing out on. I mean,
but the,
I interview a guy like Zeke Arkham, who is not a Hotep. Guys, he's a cop. He's a cop, black guy, but he's such a. We have a word in Yiddish, geschmack. It means uh, something has a great aroma, but
mm,
but more generally it means so and just so in spiritually and physically enjoyable. Like such a great guy. You just want to. People are missing out on guys like that because they're focusing on these professional politicians and and they got into bed with, of course, that lunatic Candace Owen and are feeling now that I'm not dating a black person ever again. But you thought the left would say, okay, here's a guy who's not a Republican and who's about black empowerment, and we should listen to him even though it's not he's got a different message. But I mean, I thought the cat was out of the bag quite some time ago that they're not interested in black empowerment. They're interested in party politics. Those are the blue blacks.
yeah. But the question is relative, right? It's relative to each other. Which one did I think I would have an easier time talking to? Was like, okay, so we got the blue blacks and the red whites. I'm like, I think the blue blacks edge out just a little bit.
And what you're discovering instead is that the platform that you're getting is the platform that Bryan Sharpe is creating
Yeah.
and
It's
other hoteps. I mean, you guys obviously are networking among yourselves like anyone else would.
well, the truth of the matter is I've probably been more welcomed by the red whites than the blue blacks. I have gotten, I would say, close to zero blue black traction.
Well, here's
I
the
did.
thing, Brian. I mean, they don't allow any off message, any challenging. I mean, look what they did to Robert Kennedy, who is a little bit of a flake. Okay, I get that, but that's what the electoral process is supposed to flesh out. If you're not on, because they are like a Bolshevik style party. Party discipline is how they win. They all tweeted the same thing last night about the Iran attack, as if there was an official tweet, and all the members of Congress on the Democratic caucus tweeted the same thing. That they're cool with that. They're fine with that. All right, this is stuff that anyone could say. I'm, I am interested in something. We're in the midst of all this Iran stuff.
Hmm.
We were absolutely embroiled in racial politics for months. There's so much going on, stuff going on in the courts, stuff going on politically, so much, and then all of a sudden, war, war and attacks, and this sort of breach on the right over Iran and Israel, all that stuff. I'm not seeing any discussion about all the black stuff, all the where to go. What I mean, is that just Ron? It's simple. One's a news cycle, and one is what do you any? Did you notice anything about that? Anything to?
Yeah. So the race stuff, is it's some of it is. There's several groups here, right? So at the lowest level, you have bots and ops, right? So there's intelligence organizations slash, Chinese bots, Russian bots, or some kid in basement bots. Then you have your wannabe influencers who will follow the real influencers that do the whole black people are bad situation. So they go, okay, this is easy money. So let me do this thing here, not understanding that the engagement is mostly fraudulent and pushed by bot operations. Although Elon's check mechanism doesn't care, right? As long as those people, because what happens is once the engagement comes, you get pushed into the algorithm. Once you get pushed in the algorithm, then you get all the people with verified accounts. They start seeing the content, and you get the Elon bucks. And this is why I was saying when Elon first took over the platform, I was saying to him, I told my audience, I said, paying people to make social media posts is a bad idea. It's actually going to degrade the quality of content because people are just going to do low hanging fruit things to get paid. Social media is better when you force people to get creative with how they monetize their social media accounts. So either you're going to have a sponsor, or you're going to put out a product or service, or find some other way to monetize your social media presence. But being paid directly means people are going to do the lowest effort thing just to get paid. So I was able to predict that things like this would happen. It'd just be a lot of trolling. So some of it I don't even take serious because I'm like, all right, these people are just, they just need cash. Like they're broke, they're poor, right? So they'll do whatever it takes to get paid. Then you have the people who are really pushing it. But I called it the Democrat Recovery Program because the Democrats are just basically lying on a bed in a coma. And the only thing that can really revive them is a weak right wing, a weak conservative base, a fractured MAGA. So that's what we're saying. We're seeing people being pulled in all different directions, whether it's based upon race or whether it's based upon the Israeli war. But this is the disintegration of MAGA before Trump actually leaves the White House. They can't have MAGA populism existing once Trump leaves. They've got to disintegrate that. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And some of these people are being paid to do this. Some people are acting just because they are populist and they're just honest. They just want peace, which I think is kind of stupid. But that's the way I view that situation.
So you talk about divisiveness. A commonplace among my crowd is
Yeah.
one man made the racial divide in this country worse than it had been. And that man is Barack Obama. And it almost sometimes when we say it, it sounds really Pollyannish. But most people my age, I'm 62, grew up at the end of the civil rights era. And when you had the courts, there was the strife over busing. But by the time the 70s was over, we were sort of gliding into a consensus where racial prejudice was an unacceptable part of American life. And although we understood there would always be issues and there would always be people who were fatheads and were slow to understand that this was not going to be a part of American life anymore. And here's the Pollyannish part, maybe. We had the impression that we had licked this problem, that Black professionals, Black students, Black people in America did have an equal shot, and that we had put the worst of racial prejudice behind us. And I don't think anyone thinks that in 2025. And you've got people. You just the racialization of discourse is nearly constant. So I mean, I guess the war has been almost a little bit of a break from that, for all kinds of reasons. But do you agree that Obama made things worse? Is that really a debatable question?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with Obama's presidency. During Obama's presidency, I was selling mortgages. I was getting money. I don't know why I was not paying
You
attention
were
to
not paying
politics.
attention.
I was not paying attention. I was like, Barack Obama's in the house. He's black. I'm black. I can do anything in the world. I'm
Ah,
selling mortgages. The economy was booming. I was making crazy money. And then 2008 housing crisis hit, and then I got smacked in the face by that. But yeah, you'd have to explain that to me. To me, I thought it was LBJ.
LBJ set us backward
Yeah,
because of the Great Society.
yeah.
Explain. I mean, I think I understand what you
Well,
mean, but I'd like to hear you articulate.
the Civil Rights Act, that whole period, I feel like the '60s was some of the worst. NAACP, Brown versus Board of Education, integration, like all of that was the watershed moment for the black community. Like integration, like my uncle used to say, you say integration is infiltration. And that's where that was the beginning of the end for black families
And black communities.
and black communities. Yeah, yeah.
So
So when I
you,
think of the race problem, I think of forced integration. I'm like, nah, people should probably have the choice to choose who they want to hang out with. I think if somebody wants to say that this is a white only restaurant, I think they should be able to do that.
I always give the example of how, I mean, I remember when I started out as a lawyer, I was talking to an older Jewish lawyer, and he explained how he graduated from Columbia and could not get an interview in any of the white shoe firms in the 1950s. They just didn't hire Jews.
Mm-hmm.
These Jews who could not get hired by the white shoe firms in New York in the 50s and early 60s founded firms that ended up eating the lunch of the white shoe firms. And and the white shoe firms eventually, just on competitive pressure alone, ended up opening their doors to Jews. And some of them ended up getting run by Jews and economically being much the better for it.
Yes.
But that's, you can't sell, that you can't sell that message. It's just so far from where we've been since where those days in terms of sensibilities.
Yeah. You know, when I think of conservatism, I think of Janice Rogers Brown, Judge Janice Rogers Brown. You familiar with her?
No,
You should check her out, man. Staunch conservative. She's kind of fallen back into the shadows, in the past few years.
where does she sit?
But um, this was a superior court, I want to say, in D.C. Uh, Biden opposed her nominations. I want to say Clinton's opposed one of her nominations to higher courts. One of her cases was Avis versus Aguilar. And that was about a situation where there was some racial epithets spewed at work. And she said, well, that's actually covered by the First Amendment. And, a lot of the left-wing blue-black groups didn't like that. But she's like a staunch conservative. She has a wonderful paper. I forget what the name of her paper is called, but if you check her wiki profile, she's got this paper she published about conservatism.
Yeah, I'm
Wonderful
seeing.
piece
So
of work.
she's actually a California judge.
Oh, is it California? I'm sorry.
No, but I think she was nominated. Shame on me for not knowing this or not remembering this. She was a California judge from Alabama originally.
Okay.
So this is already, someone from a black person from the South, I believe, has different eyes
Yes.
from someone who grew up in the northeastern cities.
Correct.
Served on as an associate justice of the California Supreme Court until 2005, and it looks like she was nominated. She was she was on the DC circuit
The DC circuit, right.
right until 2017. Now the
Right.
DC circuit is a famously liberal circuit,
Yeah.
but you're saying that even though, and she was nominated by George Bush,
Yeah.
and she was opposed by civil rights groups and stalled for nearly 2 years by Democrat senators who saw her as an extreme conservative judicial activist. And so this goes back, of course, to the well-known pattern by which we see that black faces. You talked about, well, the way to platform me is to just show my picture in the thumbnail because I'm Bryan Sharpe, and you're going to figure out pretty fast that I'm not, Viva Fry, right?
Shout out to Viva Fry.
Well, guess what? What we see consistently is that when it comes to politics, having a black face, being from Alabama, being an actual highly achieving black person is worth nothing, zero, in terms of not only is it not worth special consideration, you're seen as a threat to the left, and yet Bryan Sharpe tells me he's surprised that he's not invited to their parties.
I read this book, The Diversity Myth by David Sachs and Peter Thiel, about their story at Stanford. And
yes, I didn't read it,
yeah.
but I am familiar with that one. Yep.
Yeah. So, you're saying basically what they're saying, right? Like the left they got their cult and they're going to stick to their talking points, and it is what it is. And it's something I actually admire. I think it's their strength, right? And that's what makes them win. The fact that they're all on the same page. The right is all over the place. So
you're right. It is a political strength to have party discipline. It's a kind of strength.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of strength. There's tensile strength, and they're able to consistent messaging is a strength until it gets brittle,
Right.
and then it cracks. Whereas flexibility leaves you open to the kind of divisiveness other than this guy Fetterman, who is a stroke victim, right? So he's playing a different game from everyone. No Democrats go off message. Oh, and Richie Torres in New York.
Yeah. So when I think about, like, coming back to our statement, getting media, right? Let's just say media, not even political media. I thought I'd be able to get black media, which always tends to lean left, faster than I would get white media. I can't get any black media because black media, because of the party discipline. Because, see, here's the thing. Like, if I got on a black media platform and I spoke to black people, a lot of them would agree with almost everything I say. A ton of them. Most black people are super conservative, right? Especially down south. Like,
repeat that again. They're actually personally, socially, and morally extremely conservative.
Extremely conservative.
Especially your church-going Negro.
Yes, and down south. Like, so when I say 75% of my viewers are black men, well, 75% of those black men come from the South, which was crazy to me. Midwest South loves me. Up north, these New Jersey, New York cats, it's the media, they think differently, and it's that party discipline. So black media are looking at me like he's a brand risk. And they are afraid of the cancel culture that comes from the party politics. So even if we're talking about music or culture, just me being Hotep on a platform, like, for example, you think so you have the blue blacks and their opposition to white conservatism and Republican Party, but there was an entire yellow smear campaign on Hotep, period. Okay, like there's a $1 billion campaign to destroy us. And there's proof of this. If you look at the black media, they did several documentaries. So one of them was a Hulu documentary on black Twitter, right? Now, if you go look at actual black Twitter's reaction to the documentary of black Twitter, they're saying, this ain't black Twitter. We don't even know these people. But this is blue blacks, blacks colonizing or what's the term I'm looking for? LARPing,
Co-opting.
co-opting. There you. That's the word I'm looking for. Co-opting the real. Now, in this documentary, they actually, you can see on the screen, they put Hotep Nation, the name of our nonprofit organization. It's literally on the map on the screen during this documentary. Then it ends up in Netflix shows where they take a caricature of Hotep, have him be like some sort of antagonist in the film. And they do this over and over again. Then there was the whole smear campaign on YouTube, some of it pushed by people from the root, a la Huffington Post. So if you just type in Hotep, you see the lengths that the left have gone to just denigrate just the term Hotep. So when I speak to somebody, I go, yo, I'm Hotep Jesus. They go, oh, you a Hotep? They already have preconceived notions about what that is. And I'm nothing like what they saw. I'm just a common sense individual. So the fight hasn't even gotten to what are your politics. It's just a stain on the name alone because of the $1 billion campaign to destroy us.
This is fascinating because, I just realized as you're talking, we have a parallel situation in the Jewish world as well. Jews are supposed to be Democrats. Jews are supposed to be liberals. And then out of Brooklyn, out of Lakewood, New Jersey, emerges a bunch of people who look like me, who are conservatives, who are in fact Republicans. And we don't fit the narrative. And we get, we're called all kinds of names. And it's, there's a limit to the analogy, but both of us are brand risks. And that's why you and I should hit the road. We should definitely be doing a road show. I think a lot of heads would explode. But you're going to send me, after we get off this, a starter kit, what I need to watch so that I'm going to know all the terms and the names that you mentioned over the course of this interview. So the next time we talk, I won't be as obviously unprepared as I was this time.
Got you.
But here we are in the last couple of minutes. You going to break through? You think something's going to change? You think there's hope? Don't just tell me we got 1 million. We're getting more. We're selling lots of supplements. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because I'm jealous. But
we're selling tons of supplements.
tell me, do you think you're going to make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not even a question. It's to me, see, I'm a long-term planner, right? Like I don't look at the short-term mishaps of life. I've done a whole bunch of things that people thought were impossible. I used to run a record label and had artists, and it's kind of hard dealing with artists because they're knuckleheads. They don't want to listen. They're prima donnas. They think they know it all. And then what happened was I was running a record label independent, and my friend was running his record label independent. We ended up not dumping our artists, but dumping our artists. And then me and him became a group, and we had 10 times as much success with half the talent as our artists, right?
Because you understood the market.
Because we understood the market. We understood the business. We understood we understood the work ethic. Okay? Because artists, because they have the talent, don't put in the work. So
and the exceptions are remarkable.
Yes.
Some people like Jay-Z and people who've become billionaires. Not just, who would have thought that 50 Cent would be such a player in 2025? Right. He looked like a washed up, flash in the pan rapper 15 years ago. And the guy is a freaking master of the universe.
He's a hard worker. So after the tour, I ended up launching an energy drink with 50 Cent. I worked on the 50 Cent project. He is one of the most disciplined people. You would not even understand it. Like the guy wakes up at a certain time.
Believe me, I would not.
Yeah,
my wife would, but I would not.
he would run from the G Unit office to our office. He wakes up like super early. He doesn't consume alcohol. He doesn't consume drugs. Super disciplined guy. So, so I did the tour life. I did the 50 Cent life. I did the mobile app life, crypto. So now I'm here. I did, Joe Rogan. Shout out to Joe Rogan, right? Looking to go back on there next year. Just preparing for that. But I think, the stars are aligning for us. And the fact that you and I are having this conversation is proof that we're headed in the right direction, right? When two powerful people connect and start creating, that's something it's going to carry waves. So it just takes little moves like this over and over, and it compounds like interest, like dollar cost average into your portfolio.
People who listen regularly have heard me say this: a little bit of light dispels a great deal of darkness. And that's one of the other problems with again, for all the advantages of party discipline, when it cracks, it's completely cracked because the falsehood, it's Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super optimistic about our future.
Wow, what a nice thing to hear.
I just, I understand people, I understand our world, and I understand what it takes to get there. So I'm making the steps to get there. And I don't need red, white media. I don't need blue, white media. All the media I need, I'm getting.
And with that, we thank you, Bryan. Fantastic. Everyone, just look for Hotep Jesus on all the platforms that matter. If you
Hotep
don't
Jesus,
find,
just go to my website, hotepjesus.com.
that's where you're going to go if you Google it, and from there, it's all there for you. Incredible, Hotep. We got to do this more often. And
Absolutely.
After let's get on our roadshow before you get back on Rogan.
I say less.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm glad. Thanks for making time today.
Absolutely.